Ahren, and we are holding on the bottom of the ninth page of the copy is page Yudalid on Ois Tes. And we were speaking about the V'hine Parach Mata Ahren is talking about the great speed with which the Shkedim came about on his staff. Shkedim themselves are fruits that grow very quickly, and over here it was overnight with great speed, and this is showing that why is there such great speed? Because it's coming from a level that's totally beyond Seder Ishtalshus. Because the level of Ahren is the level of a Rav Chesed. In other Amorim, he contrasts Ahren with Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu is the level of Chesed, but Chesed of Atzilus. Chesed of Atzilus is a level that's, even though it's Chesed of Hashem, it still has the limitations of the world of Atzilus. That's what's brought down in other places. Whereas Ahren HaKoyin is a Rav Chesed. Like we say in Yud Gimel Sarachim, Yud Gimel Sarachim is in Chesed, it's in Aracham. In Rav Chesed is the level of Chesed, the way it's higher than Seder Ishtalshus. And when there's Chesed, it's higher than Seder Ishtalshus, so then there's no Menias V'Kuv. There's no judgments, like we say, that even though on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur we were judged, what we will get Begashmi, still know we have to daven every day, because every day we have to bring it down in case it gets stuck somewhere in the spiritual world. But when you have Amshacha from the level of Rav Chesed, you have a level of Birchas Koyanim, then in a similar way, Shabbos is also says Yom Yabia Omer Yabia is the speed that comes down. That's also on Shabbos. The brachas come down quickly, and so to Ahren HaKoyin and the children after him is the level of Rav Chesed. So they bring down with their Birchas Koyanim, they bring down all the brachas from the highest most level. And when it comes, we said higher than intellect. If something comes from intellect, so then there's room for reconsideration, reevaluation, delays, and so on. But when it comes from a rotzen or a tainug atzmi, from the essential delight and will that's beyond intellect, so nothing stands in its way. It comes down in full force with the full entire energy that it can come down. And therefore, that great energy also as well makes sure that it should be in a way of a lot of brachas. That's why it says in Birchas Koyanim, Yivarecha means in children and money, and the fact that it's in children and money also includes life, because Hashem gives you money. He's not going to give you money for a dead person. There's no purpose in money. So it's included in the three major things: children, life, and sustenance. All of these things, in other words, multiple ashpahs. Why is it multiple ashpahs? Because it's coming from such a high level, it's higher than Seder Ishtalshus. And because it's also coming down from higher than Seder Ishtalshus, it can even come down to the lowest place in this world. That's why it says, V'yishmerecha, he will protect you from mazikim. Mazikim is applicable. When could there be something that will damage or hurt a person? That's applicable only in this low world, in this physical world, in the physical world itself is the lowest most place where a person can be damaged and hurt. Like Chazal explained that. What's it mean? If you don't have money, so you don't have to worry about robberies. If you have money, so then you have to be protected also from the robbers. The same thing, since it's coming down here into such a low area in the physical world, even a place where robbers are there, how can the bracha of the Eibishter come down in such a low type of place? It's because it comes from a very, very high place. And that's why it's in a great amount of bracha in Bona Chayim Mezoina, and this comes down even to such a low place, such a practical place, even a place where it could be mazikim. And that's also the idea of why the Alter Rebbe and the Torah brings this together with the concept of that the Birchas Koyanim comes down with speed. He connects it with this Yivarecha b'mamen and b'banim, What's the connection of speed and that? Because they're really a result of the same thing. Because it's coming from such a high level, the level of Aaron, the level of the Kohanim, which is Rav Chesed. Because of that, it can come down so low, and it comes down to such great amount of brachas. So it's interconnected. All these different things. The thing that it says in Kudei Torah, that because of Bichras Kohanim, it ensures it should come down very, very low. And the thing that the Chazal say that so that is also the fact that it's so much bracha, and it comes down to such a low place, is also a result of the same thing that brings about that it's with speed, because it's coming from such a high place. So all these three things are connected. What Alter Rebbe speaks about in Likutei Torah, and about the speed, and that it comes from the highest place and comes down to the lowest place. So now we're holding Ois S, line 30, second line from the bottom on the 9th page of the printouts, if you have printouts, Ois Yud Dalet. Page Yud Dalet, excuse me, Ois Test. The Rebbe goes on to say, we could add to this, though Birchas Kohanim was before the Aaron staff blossomed, and it gave forth the small almonds that came forth. In other words, we were connecting, our mimer began with the idea of a yigmal shkedim, that it shows that the bracha comes down speedily, just like the almonds are the first to ripen, and it came down very quickly by Aaron HaKohen, and we connected it with Birchas Kohanim. But seemingly, time-wise, Birchas Kohanim existed beforehand. And the Vayigmal Shkedim, Vayiprach Mata Aaron was in a later time. Like it says, this already says in Parsha Shmini, at the time when they finished the putting up the Mishkan, which they put up the Mishkan was around Nisan. It was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, was the 8th day. That was the time when the Mishkan was finally erected, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the karbanis and so on. And then was Vayisa Aaron es Yadav Ala'am Vayivarchin. This is the big in Parsha Shmini. It says that Aaron raised his hands to the nation and he gave them baracha. What type of baracha did he give them? Upirish Rashi, top of page as well. Rashi explains Vayivarchin Birchas Kohanim, that the baracha that he gave them was not just okay, Aaron, the holy man, gave brachas to you, but the brachas that he gave them was Birchas Kohanim. Even then was the Birchas Kohanim with great speed. This was still when they first erected the Mishkan in Midbar Sinai, before the Chet of the Meraglim. The Chet of the Meraglim, the Chet of Kodah. First there was the Chet of Meraglim that took place in Sivan. They went for 40 days to travel to Eretz Yisrael. And afterwards, there was the sin of the Meraglim that took place afterwards. And then there was Kodah was after the sin of the Meraglim. So this was after we had Birchas Kohanim. V'gam Oz, even then, when Aaron benched the Yidden Birchas Kohanim, there was also the drawing down of Birchas Kohanim speedily. So how does the Maimer for the Torah seems to link the two together? That Birchas Kohanim has to do with Vehine Parach Mata Aaron, when the Birchas Kohanim, which obviously is this idea more than davening every day, it has the Maila of drawing it down in a speedily fashion, even before it was the story with the staff. Kol Mokim Achre Sheparach Mata Aaron, the place of Ilibas after the staff of Aaron blossomed, and it gave forth the flower, and then the bud, and then the almonds. So then the toys of Ilibas. So then, even in the Hamshacha that Birchas Kohanim brings down, now there was something more than before. Even in the Parach Mata Aaron Goyim by the Since the idea that Aaron's staff blossomed, and it gave forth buds of almonds. It came about through the challenge to the kahuna. So the whole idea of Aaron HaKohen was about bringing down brachas. Here you have a challenge to it. Aaron HaKohen's brachas was now being challenged. I'm shocked that was being challenged. This is similar to a case of a document that was challenged, and then it was established in Bezdin. The halacha is that it has a greater strength and power than a document that was never challenged. So a person, for example, could come to Bezdin with a document that says, Shimon owes me money. And the document that has two witnesses signed on it. But we don't know who the witnesses are. And Shimon says, Lahadam, this never happened. I don't know. I've never seen this document before. So Bezdin will investigate. They will track down the witnesses of the document, and they will investigate and find out, do you recognize your signature? Do you recognize what it says here in the document? Once it's gone through the whole process of Bezdin investigating the document, now the document has greater strength and validity than before it went through the Bezdin. Before it went through the Bezdin, there were two people who wrote between themselves a document. They pulled another two people along to be witnesses to it. And the story was all done in a very ordinary fashion without necessarily having any power and strength of Bezdin. But once it was challenged and Bezdin verified it, so now it has a seal of approval in Bezdin. So there seems to be like an opposite type of thing. The challenge to the document brings the document, after meeting the challenges, to a higher state, to a stronger type of document than it was before it was challenged. And if you have, let's say, two documents before you, one was never challenged, and one was challenged and verified by Bezdin, the document that was challenged and verified by Bezdin has much more stronger validity to it, even though it seems to have gone through a period of doubt and negative things. And the Rebbe goes on saying line 8 of the East, like the powerful light that comes specifically out of darkness. So here you have the darkness of the challenge to the document, and you have a powerful light. So the same thing, you have that you had the Birchas Kohanim before there was any challenge to the Kahun. Yes, because it was Birchas Kohanim, and Aaron is the level of Rav Chesed, and Kohanim is the level of Chesed, it's higher than Seder Shtalshlos, so it brings down things in a speedy fashion, etc., etc. But after the Kahuna was challenged, and then the Eibishter validated it, so it has the special quality of Yisnoir Abam Nachoshech, the much more stronger and more powerful Amshach. Well, Pizi Yesh Levaya, according to this, we could explain much of possible to the Torah B'Sima Maimer, where it's written in the Torah at the conclusion of the Maimer, Sheyashkida Lemuta V'Letoy. There is the idea of shkida, of the idea of diligence and speed and quickness for mutav. Mutav is a chazal saginor type of euphemism for the negative, and then there's shkida for toiv. And he said, because it says by Yirmiyahu Hanavi that when Hashem told him about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, the upcoming destruction of the Beit HaMikdash in Bayis Rishon, so he saw a vision of a makil shoki, of an almond staff, indicating that the Eibishter will soon bring this about, the negative thing. So the Alter Rebbe, the Torah says there's the negative shkedim, negative shkida, like we see by Yirmiyahu Hanavi, and then opposed to that was shkedim, the matarim shkedim toivim, the Alter Rebbe says, line 11. But the almonds of the matarim were good shkida, a positive type of way of the Eibishter being diligent to complete and to perfect everything. So the question is, why bring in the negative? True. How do we know that Shkedim shows the quickness and speed and diligence? We see it from the story with Yirmiyahu. The Chazal also darshan from it. That's why it was 3 weeks from the breaching of the walls till on Shavuos B'Tammuz till the 9th of when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, because that's the amount of time how much it takes for the bud to form of an almond. But why bring in the negative for no reason? The Rebbe says, based on what we said before, about the validity of a document once it's been challenged is so much stronger. The additional light that comes out of darkness, the greater power of Birchas Koyanim that takes place only after the challenge of Koydach. The Rebbe says in line 11, Yesh Leimar, that we could say the Zesh, or maybe on Maimon Shesh Gidol and Mutafu, the fact that the Maimon brings down that there's the idea of diligence and speed. Also, for the opposite of good, well, the Rambam is the hint, even in the good almonds, the positive of the staff of Aaron, there's also the advantage of transformation, of turning over the negative to the good. And that's why it came only following the challenge against the kahuna that came from Koydach. And the Alter Rebbe is hinting to this by saying there could be negative almonds also, there could be negative diligence also, and we have to do that. We have to transform that to be able to bring the ultimate type of bracha down. Any questions?
You eat a lot of almonds?
We're holding line 15, second paragraph on page 12. If we could add to this very point that the Rebbe just now introduced, that the whole idea of the negative brings about the Vayigmos Shkedim, etc. The fact that the establishment of the Ahrens being Kohen Gadol was after the challenge. How was that established? What means that Hashem used to deliver that message that Aaron HaKohen was supposed to be the Kohen Gadol, not any of the other heads of Shvatim. So it was done specifically through this type of means of message. Because the idea of the almonds is speed, and that has connection with Aaron, like we mentioned at the beginning of the first eyes. There's also this special advantage of transforming the negative to good is also associated with the idea of speed. So it's not just, okay, we have a greater speed, more speed. Why? Because there was a sapcha, because there was transformation. But the very concept of transforming negative to positive, that has to do with the idea of speed. The Rebbe explains why is that so. What's the connection between them? Yes, we can say the explanation this is so the idea of speed is even when the hashpah comes down very much below, so we said in Oizches that when the hashpah comes down a very, very low place, even such a low place that you need to guard yourself from people that could hurt, mazikin, and still in that low place, it comes down very, very much so. Therefore, and that has to do with the idea of speed. The speed is indicative of that coming down so low. So that also down here below should be the multiple type of hashpah, the great type of flow. We need to make that which is below a vessel for it. And the vessel ensures that whatever has to come down will come down. You could say that amongst the reasons why the conclusion and the seal of Baruch Kainim is He will place to you peace, because the vessel for something that needs to have a lot of bracha. We said that the Birchas Kainim brings down much brachas, and we need to make a kli for it. What is the vessel for the much brachas? We built in Mugbal until an amount that's without boundaries whatsoever. The Ribu Ashpa, the Birchas Kainim, who Bishar Ribu built in Mugbal, because the much Ashpa of Birchas Kainim is in its root a great amount without boundary, because it comes from the level of Rav Chesed. The Rav shows much without limitations. The level of Chesed, the way it's in Chesed. Like we mentioned before, the root of the Ashpa of Birchas Kainim is higher than Seder Ishkalshus. So therefore, what is the vessel that can contain so much bracha? Washalom. It's a level of peace. Like Matzah Baruch Hu Kli Machzor Baruch Hu Yisrael Hashalom. The Hashem did not find a vessel that can contain bracha for Yidden as good as peace. Therefore, based on this, since peace is the greatest hail for all the types of unbelievable brachas, the great amount of brachas that come down, this has to do with this hapcha. Because the ultimate idea of peace has to do with transformation. When you transform the negative into the positive, when you gam oivav yashlim imay, even his enemies makes peace with him, like we always speak about in the Padav Shalom Amarim. It says over there, Padav Shalom Nafshi Mikrovli Ki Berabim Hayi Madi, and we explain what's the mean Berabim Hayi Madi, that even Anshe Avshalom, who were rebelling against David HaMelech, davened for David HaMelech. And that's why it's called a redemption of peace. A redemption of peace does not mean that you force your will on the enemy, but that the enemy itself wants to be in peace to you. That the enemy itself becomes transformed. That's the level of ishapka. So the ultimate peace is when it's ishapka. Let's see it inside the end of line 28. According to this, we could explain the connection of the advantage of ishapka to the idea of the speed of the almonds. The true idea of speed is the fact that also down here below, what comes down was a great amount. It's not just because the Amshach that comes from above is not delayed. Top of page design. It's the idea of even that which is below is a vessel for it. And that is the ultimate level of much. And how is the mata a vessel for it? Through the peace that's in it. So that's why it comes down quickly. That's why it comes down with a lot. The true idea of peace is when even the negative becomes transformed to good, because that's what the true peace is, that there's no one challenging the peace, there's no one attacking, there's no Cold War, there's not even what's called a cherev shel shalom lo yavrabat, and there's no negative whatsoever. The Rebbe concludes, "V'taxas shleimus v'shalom zeh shegam ha'oyev nefach la'oyev," the ultimate perfection of this peace, that even the enemy becomes transformed to a friend. Yeh bias Mashiach tzidkeinu b'karav mamish will be in the coming of Mashiach tzidkeinu speedily. This is also brought down the Padav Shalom Amorim that the Rebbe always speaks about, that the even though there's the level of Padav Shalom the way it was by David HaMelech, and there's a higher level of redemption and peace that was by Shlomo HaMelech, that he's called Shlomo because he's Melech Shalom Shaloi, that he himself is a level of peace and he didn't have to fight any wars like David HaMelech had to fight, but rather people on their own came to him and sent him gifts and were friendly with him and so on. But even then, that wasn't the ultimate level of peace. The ultimate level of peace will be with the coming of Mashiach. That's the true idea of Pada V'Shalom. Then the peace will be in the most and greatest sense. And since peace is the keli for the brachas, like we said before, then the bracha can be beribui. Then the blessings that come down can be in a way of much. Ribui bilti mugbal, an amount that's without boundaries, that has no limitations. Like it says in the pasuk, that Yerushalayim, instead of being a walled city, it will be an open city, meaning no wall surrounding it. And the idea that no wall surround it shows that instead of what walls do two things, that another one said. Walls keep others from outside coming in, the enemies, for example, but a wall also constrains the inside. It says, up till here is Yerushalayim, up till here is this area. Whatever is walled in is part of it. Whatever is outside the walls are out of it. But when you have an open area, not walled in, that shows us that means without measure, without boundaries. So that shows also that the brachas that come down are without measure and without boundaries. And that's because by the coming of Mashiach, there'll be this hapcha, there'll be the transformation of the enemy to being a friend. So therefore, it's going to be the ultimate level of peace. And because we're going to have the ultimate level of peace, we'll have the ultimate level of bracha. This should come down immediately in our days as well.